Well, let's go to Nehemiah chapters 1 through 5. We're in Nehemiah chapter 1 through 5. And the next 2 weeks we'll do 4 chapters each, okay? Because it's an oddball chapter. It ends on 1:3 on 13. So we're going to do 5, 4, and 4. Okay? So just to let you know how we're doing that. So it says here, the words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. It came to pass in the month of Chislev, and you might say, what's the deal with that? Well, it's Hebrew, all right? And the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, so we got to go with that. And you know what it is? It's November/December. That's what Chislev is. You go, what does that mean? Why can't it just be November or December? Because they kind of go by the lunar, calendar, and sometimes if it hits mid-month, then you have to go through the mid-month of the other month. That's why it's November/December. In the 20th year, that would be of Artaxerxes, okay? Not of Nehemiah, but of the king. As I was in Shushan, the citadel, and this is about 150 miles north of the Persian Gulf in present-day Iran. It served as a winter residence for the monarchs of Persia. That's where they would go and just hang for a while. And it's also called Susa, S-U-S-A, not the great musician, but it's the ancient city of Susa, and again, the winter residence of the Persian kings. In the citadel, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came with men from Judah. Okay, that's 900 miles away. I mean, you couldn't even use a skateboard. You had to walk or be on a dromedary or a mule or something like that. And it would just take, months to get to where you needed to go. Imagine if you walked to roughly Denver from here, And I asked them concerning the Jews who had escaped and who had survived the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. In other words, how's it going? We have instant knowledge, right? We know, we can look anything up on the internet, but he didn't know. You had to wait for information. And so he wanted to know, of course, all about back there in Jerusalem. Keep in mind, he had never been to Jerusalem. He was born in captivity. So, but if you're a Jew, no matter where you're at in the world, what's your number one concern? What direction do you pray in? You always pray towards Jerusalem. I kid you not. One time I was on a plane from New York to, I think it was Amsterdam, and a Jewish guy stood up. The Jews that they grow their sideburns long and they have the curls. And those are the real conservative Jews. And he starts putting on his phylactery. He weaves this thing around his arm with this box. And he puts this thing over his head, like a girl's choker. He puts this thing on his head. And there's this little box there. And he gets his little prayer book. And he's in the aisle of the plane. I'm watching this guy, And he's looking around like this, and he finally locks on. And he does this whole prayer. Because what he locked on to? He had to figure out in his inner compass where Jerusalem was. And we're over the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know how he did it, but he locked on. And see, that's every Jew's heart, is Jerusalem. The place where God said, I will always be, and I will put my name. And it's the city of our great king. So he's just asking them, how's it going with Jerusalem? And they said to me, it wasn't so good. The survivors who are left from the captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. So now some daggers are hitting his heart. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. So that's a lot of information to get all at once. So it was when I heard these words that I sat down and wept and mourned for many days. I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. So he was just so hurt. It's like how we feel when we get bad news about someone, something, and, it just makes you want to cry. And you just start praying, oh, Lord. And I said, I pray, Lord God of heaven, O great and awesome God, you who keep your covenant and mercy with those who love you and observe your commandments. Please let your ear be attentive and your eyes open, that you may hear the prayer of your servant, which I pray before you now, day and night, for the children of Israel, your servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we have sinned against you. Both my father's house and I have sinned. I like how he put himself in there. And he identified with the people, even though he was a real godly man. We have acted very corruptly against you, and have not kept the commandments, the statutes, nor the ordinances which you commanded your servant Moses. Remember, I pray, the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. And that's what did happen. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, though some of you were cast out to the farthest part of the heavens, yet I will gather them from there and bring them to the place which I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. See that? Jerusalem is that place. Now these are your servants and your people, whom you have redeemed by your great power and by your strong hand. O Lord, I pray, please let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant. Second time he's prayed that. Like, Lord, really listen to me. And to the prayer of your servants who desire to fear your name, and let your servant prosper this day, I pray, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. Now, he already has it in his heart, it looks like, to do something about it. He wants to respond, but he prays about it first. And now he's saying, Lord, is there something you can do? Maybe bring me into the favor of the king. Maybe I can bear some influence upon the situation there. For I was the king's cupbearer. And that's a very close position. I mean, you're constantly right there in the presence of the king. Plus, the king has to see you pour it into your palm and see, take it like that, because it could be poison. There's always somebody trying to get the king, all that kind of court intrigue. And it's just the way it is. Chapter 2, and it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, that I took the wine and I gave it to the king. Now I had never been sad before in his presence. And you just couldn't do that. No one was to appear before the king with sadness or bad news. It would actually be a capital offense. Therefore, the king said to me, why is your face sad, since you are not sick? This is nothing but sorrow of heart. And the king just read him, because he had known him. He'd always been happy and chipper. Oh, king. He doesn't want to bring the king down. He's got enough on his mind. But you know how it is sometimes you try so hard to have self-control, but inside your emotions are raging. And you try not to wear your emotions, but you know how it is. Sometimes you can't do that because you're so sorry, have that heaviness of heart. And then it says, so I became dreadfully afraid. It's like, oh, I don't know where this is going to go. Have I blown it? Is my head going to roll? Have I lost my job? Have I lost the opportunity to bear influence upon the king? And so he said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city, the place of my father's tombs, lies waste and its gates are burned with fire? So he's informing the king about his personal problems and desires and concerns, because you are who you are, right? And this is his countrymen. and these are his brethren in the Lord. Then the king said to me, what do you request? And that was short. And you know how he answered? Well, first he says, I prayed to the God of heaven. So he shot up to the Lord what has been characterized as an arrow prayer. And ever since I heard that, I thought, I like that, where you just, kind of shoot up a bow shot, to the Lord. Now, an arrow prayer is one of those emergency prayers. And I know you've prayed this prayer because I have too. Like just before a potential accident, right? Oh, Lord! That's what you call an arrow prayer. And Peter sinking into the sea, what did he say? 3 words, Lord, save me. Didn't have time for any kind of Lord's Prayer or anything like that, right? So we kind of just shoot up a prayer. You're in interaction, you're working, and, you're like praying inside. The Lord hears those prayers, doesn't he? And so he prays to the God of heaven, like, Lord, lead me now. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, I ask that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it. And the king said to me, the queen also sitting beside him. Now, it's kind of interesting because it looks like it's in a situation where, it's not like a business meeting, but she's there, and it's more like a personal thing. And it really could be that she also had influence on her husband to help release Nehemiah to go back. That maybe she even kind of elbowed Artaxerxes and said, honey, just let him go. He's such a good man. He's tasted your potential poison, and he has sorrow of heart, and when a man's a certain way, like a man will get in his mind, it's like got to be real strict, but the woman comes in and she has that softening effect. Aren't women great? And